Part 5. Can you take care of yourself? Even a number of months after it started, this whole divorce thing, moving out and finding out who people really are, and you fight over this and you fight over that and you talk a certain way, and you find out a lot about someone's character and who they are as a person. And it dawned on me very quickly to say, are you sure you know what you're doing? In respect to, can you take care of yourself? Before you start going and saying, okay, I got all these problems and I'm going to make them other people's problems. You're going to go move in with your parents again, with your children, unemployed, and say, this is my life now and this is what's happening. My ex-husband, baby daddy, is going to have all these financial problems thrown at him. Plus, emotionally, he's going to be just fucked. And this is my plan, and I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to go do stuff, and then we're going to fight in court for however many years to get all this stuff. Are you sure you know what you're doing? So I would recommend, before you go and jump ship and say, okay, I'm going to make all these problems somebody else's problems, is write down a list of certain things that you need to take care of yourself. So starting off with the easy stuff, finances. Can you afford to live? In 2020, when she left, or the end of 2019, getting into 2020, life was already expensive enough. And when you get into what it takes to support a small family, so just look at a regular family that you would see on any TV show, whatever. You got mom and your dad, you got a couple kids, you got a house, you got 2 cars, you got all this stuff that you want in life. You got savings, and you want to go on a vacation, and you got to upgrade this and upgrade that. It doesn't take long to start spending serious money all the time, every single month, all the time, and it never ever stops. I would recommend doing a budget for yourself. Now, keeping in mind here too that if you're leaving your husband, you're taking your kids, and you're going to go and fight about, these are my kids, not our kids, is that there's a whole bunch of costs that are going to start happening in your life. The main one is going to be lawyer costs. Okay, so whatever it's going to cost you to start that, and it's also not going to last very long. You're going to have to keep pumping money into that. Maybe not monthly, but if you have to put $5,000 down and you're going after this and going after that, you're going to find that that $5,000 doesn't last very long. On top of everything else, your rent, your vehicle, your children, your groceries, all your insurance bills, and you have all these things all of a sudden that as a bare minimum just to survive, you need to have all these things in place, and you have to now do this by yourself. In my ex's situation, she had never done this before. I paid bills and I took care of everything all the time. She helped sometimes here and there, and sometimes she didn't help at all. And then she also had a bad attitude at the end, and it's really helped solidify I really do this on my own. And now she says, I don't need this fucking guy in my life. I'm going to go over here, live with my parents for a while, and I'm going to start living on my own. Well, it didn't take long to find out that when you go and you find out what a basic ass house costs, because you have kids, you can't just go live in some shit little apartment somewhere or basement suite when dad's got this nice house. Kids find out real quick that dad's house is cooler than mom's house. So you got to kind of keep up. You need a house. They have a house. You got to keep up with those certain things. Any rent, especially nowadays, for a full house with insurance and with utilities, it's like $3,000 a month for a basic ass house. Now, in Strathmore, the first year, she got away with paying a whole bunch less because it wasn't quite crazy COVID times yet, and we hadn't had that inflation happen. But I think her house still would have been $1,700 a month. So when you're only making $40,000 a year and your paychecks are $1,200, that doesn't go very far. So as far as how many zeros are in the end, wherever you're at, whatever your house costs, that's up to you to kind of decide. One thing that I would always recommend to the ladies is do what my ex-wife did, which was, I can live here by myself, or I can get a roommate. And even though, you got kids all the time, and you got to fight over this and fight over that, and you're going through this divorce, and you also don't make any money, and you're also kind of a bitch, and things like this, I did find that if you need a roommate to help pay for your bills because you're broke ass, is that if you stroke that roommate's buying bone, it seems to be a much easier way to get a roommate compared to saying, you have to go through and find a friend that wants to help and you have another room now. If you sleep with them, they get to stay in your room, and it's much easier to convince a man to live with you when you're stroking his buying bone. So something to consider. May not be for you, but I know for somebody that it absolutely worked very well for her.
Shake weight is the flab-busting breakthrough that trims your arms and shapes your shoulders at the same time.
No matter what in the divorce is that you're not going to get paid right away. So I was a nice guy. I started paying her right away as far as child support and daycare stuff was concerned. Once I moved to Strathmore, which was about 8 months after she left, so we're now in the end of summer 2020, starting the 20 and 21 school year, she found a place of her own and she was able to move out of her parents' house at 33 years old. Good for her. Even then, your payments, this child support payment doesn't really cover a whole bunch. Like if you have $3,000 a month of bills and $900 a month is coming into you, $800 a month, it's helpful when you only make $2,500 a month, but it's really not life-saving. It now becomes necessary for you to get that money because without it, I don't know if she could actually live. So the finances thing is very important for you to figure out where you're going to live, how you're going to take care of your kids, because now this is on you. If you've chosen to be a soon-to-be divorced single mom, and I'm going to go down the road of independence and I don't need no man and husbands are stupid, then okay, great. The world will pat you on the back for it, especially at this point in time. But you still have to take care of yourself. And I found out that now in Calgary, $3,000 a month for a house doesn't get you much of a house. It's basic. And if you want a vehicle, and if you want to go on a trip, and if you want to have any kind of savings for yourself, do you want to get your kids anything nice? All of a sudden, you just $100, $100, all over the place. I'm going to say that $80,000 a year, when I made $80,000 a year, my paychecks were about, I don't know, $2,000 every 2 weeks. So at that point, I lived at like $20 a month constantly. I spent everything I made all the time. And that was quite a lot of years ago when rent wasn't $3,000 a month. Finances, very important. And can you afford to live and can you afford to take care of your own children? It's really interesting to see somebody in a position of power in a divorce that they're going after all this stuff. They're going after custody and they're taking away custody from baby daddy. And they are somebody who is unemployed. They're living with their parents and they're driving their ex-husband's car.
My name is George. I'm unemployed and I live with my parents.
It's an interesting position to be in, I would say. I have never been there myself, but I don't want to, I don't want to say anything bad about anybody, but I wouldn't recommend being in that position because I think it's stupid and I think it's fake. Number 2, the mental anguish that goes along with divorce is something that most people don't really talk about. Throughout this process, you have to maintain a work life. You have to go to work and you have to make money now. You have to have new relationships and you have to maintain relationships with your friends and your family. And how do you stay sane? How do you stay, because you're not a regular person anymore. You're going through a huge life change. Whether you're like me and on the receiving end of all this bullshit, or you're on the giving end of all this bullshit and causing all of it, you're not who you used to be. And mentally, can you focus and do what you have to do in your day? Can you take care of yourself mentally? Where at night, when you go to bed by yourself, okay, this is my life. I've chosen this now. I got this new guy beside me, or I got this new girl beside me now. And like, okay, this is my life. And kids are not sure what the hell to do. And you're spending all this money all over the place. What the fuck just happened? Can you maintain that? Because this is your life now. And for the first year and maybe 2, or if you're like some people, you just keep it going forever and just fight for years. That mental and emotional state of mind is very hard to keep sane. It's hard to keep on a level playing field. The first year for me was absolutely crazy. And by the grace of God, I was able to continue to go through it. I was able to pay my bills. I kept my job. Might have had a couple complaints here and there from Brett being an asshole, but that's not new. So there's a lot of things to consider here about taking care of yourself. The emotional thing that I found as a guy being on the receiving end of all this is that it would just hit in random times. Like you would have a week where a couple good dates with somebody or something goes well and you're busy at work, so you got a decent paycheck and you can afford that fucking lawyer money now, or okay, there's a big chunk of money coming up next, or you have some kind of a plan to make yourself an extra this much amount of money for the year because you got all these extra costs. And all of a sudden, you just see something that would just trigger this situation in your mind, and you'd be like, what the fuck? And you lose it. And you sit and cry in a parking lot when you're at work or whatever the hell would happen to you. And you have to find ways to get that out of your body, right? Get that out of your mind, get it out of your heart, wherever you're feeling it. And mental anguish is all I can really say as far as I dealt with it. The ability to monitor your own emotions. Mental and emotional kind of go hand in hand of, can I focus on what I want to do? Can I get out of bed properly? Am I working out? Am I eating okay? And then emotional of just saying, how am I feeling today? And how am I going to get through my day? How am I going to have a smile on my face? When I see my kids later, I got to pretend everything's fine. And oh, daddy's got it taken care of, even though dad doesn't have a goddamn clue what he's doing. And you got to kind of lie to your kids and everything's great. And try not to develop a twitch or any kind of a tweak or any kind of weirdness going on in your mind. It's something that I don't know how to tell you to go and do that, other than you dive in and you keep this in the back of your mind of monitoring your mental sanity and keeping that going while making sure that your bills are paid. And if they got all these other bills to come, well, someone's going to pay them. And if you don't, then your debt just goes up. How long can it go up? As long as you're kind of at a point where you have to decide this for yourself. Another thing too is, for the people that are into bigger and better things in life, what's your spiritual beliefs? Any kind of religious beliefs, or what do you believe is happening in our world? One of the things I found out for me is that I became a non-believer for quite a period of time. The first year for sure, and maybe even into the second year of what in the hell just happened to my life. One day I have this wife and I have these kids and I have like this, commercial life. I got a white picket fence and I got all this shit going on, and all of a sudden it's gone. It's not there anymore. Who I thought my wife was, she is not that person anymore. She's over here and she's got somebody new moved in already, and fuck you, pay me. And it's not okay. This is my life now, and you have to continue to move forward with this. So when you have those moments of time of whoever you call God, do you talk to that person? Do you talk to whatever that entity is and say to yourself, like, what is this supposed to teach me? What am I doing? Nothing means what it used to mean. I found that for sure. As far as the asset stuff goes, is the money really meant a lot during that time. And afterwards, when it was all paid out, it meant very little. I released my attachment to stuff. And for whatever reason, that belief was able to keep a lot of my stuff, or the stuff that I did have to get rid of, I was able to replace it at a later time. This didn't happen for a couple of years, year 3, and we're just finishing up year 4, going into year 5 now as to this period of time. Really take some time for yourself and to find out what you do believe in, and to say, what are the things that I've learned through this process? What is this trying to teach me? If I got my ass kicked like this, well, did I need this? What was this supposed to do for me? So ask those things. And I always recommend journaling as a way of, for your eyes only, write down exactly what you're thinking. And I usually, especially the first year, I threw away my journals, because it was pages after pages after pages of, if someone else read that, it would be like, wow, this guy's really feeling sorry for himself and he thinks his ex-wife's a real fucking cunt. And that's about what I journaled about for quite a long time. And then eventually there's other good things that happen. And if you can take a step away from that and look bigger, all of a sudden there is a lot of good things happening, and there's a reason for this. And who is this person now that you thought was your life partner, and she just became another single mom on Tinder? Right on, there's not very many of them. They should go join that group. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And you're like, well, why would you join that group? Was I really that bad? Maybe I was. But we didn't fight about my behavior as much as we fought about my money. So I thought the money was a little bit more important there than there's something that you have to really look at, as to taking care of yourself means more than just making money for yourself. Is, how am I going to live now? How am I going to take care of my kids now? How am I going to date? What do I believe in? And can I continue to do what I need to do in my life? Am I going to try new things? Am I going to meet new people? Who are my friends now? Because you'll find that you'll lose people. Especially the friends that were like couple friends that you had. I got rid of, I think, every single person that was tied to her in any sort of way, because now they kind of sit back and go, well, no, we're not taking anyone's side, we're friends, the both of you. And my attitude was, if you're at all on her side, then just be on her side. I don't need you in my life. I have my core people that I need right here, and those people stay, they really stuck with me, so I kept them. And I don't know if that's a good way to go about it. If you're a little tougher and a little nicer than me, maybe you can maintain those other relationships too. But for me and what I needed to go through at that time, those people needed to go and they weren't part of my life anymore. It's not a good answer, I guess, but do that for yourself and you have to find that out for yourself as far as you want to go with that. Something to consider here is that when you're going in your day-to-day life, whether this just happened a few weeks ago, a couple months ago, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, is that you're not going to have a constant, I'm just better now and I'm just better now and I'm just better now. It doesn't work like that, where all of a sudden you'll have a good day and you're like, I don't really think I thought about the situation at all today. And, write about that and feel good about that, because tomorrow you might just have this stupid little text that she sends about something that she just wants to flick you in the dick, and she does, and now your day's ruined. Well, she can piss me off now for a couple of hours. That's about as much as she gets, where in the initial, she could ruin my entire week with something, because she likes to send text messages about me being a shitty dad and me being a shitty person and I don't do this and I don't do that. That's kind of her last defense now that there's no money to fight over, and it turns out that the money that she fought over is not even close to being able to save her. So there's little ways of manipulation that still exist in my life. And as far as spiritual goes, is that the more that I love myself and the more that I can accept myself for who I am and say, all these thoughts that I have and all these things that I want to do, I'm just going to continue to do them. And I'm confident in them. I'm confident in who I am, whoever that is today. Those things matter less and less and less. And that's where you can find in yourself that there's actually some growth here. Whether it's I make a little bit more money or things don't bother me as much. I find on a day-to-day basis, if I'm pissed off about something, that it bothers me for a less bit of time than it used to. You know that you're moving in a forward direction. That's what I would recommend to anybody, is find those little things that say, I'm having a bit better day. Something bothers me a little bit less. I found a way to make a little bit more money, because as a dad, you're going to have to constantly make more money. Whether you're divorced, whether you're married, anything in between, you need to make more. Kids cost money, and ex-wives cost a lot of money too. So they're going to get their money. So you have to be able to say to yourself, I'm moving forward in this direction. Mentally, can I do this? Financially, can I do this? Spiritually, can I do this? And it turns out I can. And if I'm just some dude in Calgary, that means that you can too. So find ways to do that for yourself. And if you're somebody who is struggling in any of these aspects, start with writing things down as to what you need for yourself. And there are people who will appear in your life that will help you.